friends, people I never knew, people I never thought about associating with. I don't know what it is. Talk to me. Check it out. 85 acres with a mansion on my land. Full jacuzzis and my neighbors can't stand the way I live. This zone so fast. Ain't got your ladies and prime time is all that.
Whoa, Dion. It's not that kind of prime time.
Yeah, man, it's primetime fantasy football on Next Level Radio.
Well, alright. Yeah. You know, ever since
We are at the halfway point of the NFL season, kind of midway through. This week was the halfway point. Week number 9 approaches. I am one of your hosts. Welcome to Primetime Fantasy Football, by the way. I am Adam Gorey, joined by Joe Webster.
What's going on?
And Steve Richards.
Hi, everybody.
We are here to bring you all the fantasy football knowledge you can handle in an hour, roughly. So, first off, if you have any questions for any of us, you can catch us on Twitter. I'm at AdamNextLevel. Joe is at JoeyWeb32. Steve is at SRichards31. Or you can tweet the Next Level Radio at NXT Level Radio. Ask us any questions you want up to game time, and then if you ask us next week before Wednesday, we can actually read them on the podcast and answer them for you. Or you can email primetime at nextlevelradioonline.com. Don't forget to subscribe if you're listening to us on iTunes. Don't forget to subscribe if you're streaming us on the website. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Just search for Primetime Fantasy Football, and also subscribe to Next Level Radio. Have something called the Showcast on there. I believe there's going to be a couple more podcasts coming shortly, along with some guest spotlights. So make sure you check that out. Go to nextlevelradioonline.com. You'll find our fantasy football rankings, usually up by Thursday night. You can check Steve's blog out, stephenrichards.net, and like us on Facebook, facebook.com/nextlevelradioonline. Let's get right into things. We will start off, as usual, with high-low. Okay, first up, we'll recap last week's highs. Not a good week for any of us. I missed on Russell Wilson. He had about 14.5 points. I missed on Mike Wallace at about 6 points. The Seahawks have an okay matchup this week. They play the Raiders. Raiders are a bad team. So you guys like Russ this week? Because I think, it's kind of weird. They're at home, so I got to figure. I know last week we kind of said, Steve, you and I talked about maybe he's shed that whole home and away thing. Last week didn't really prove that, but I think he does recover this week against a bad Raiders team. You guys both agree?
Yeah, I think he has to.
Seattle might score 100 points this week.
Yeah.
And then with Mike Wallace, they play the Chargers. I'm sticking with Wallace. If I have him, I still think he can be a top 15 guy for you week in and week out. He's not going to put up huge numbers, but I think he can get you some consistent 13 to 15 points in there somewhere. Are either of you, I guess I'll ask you this, are either of you unsold now on Wallace after one down week this last week?
No, I don't think so. I think he's actually been more consistent this year than I would have originally expected. So you kind of expect even really good wide receivers are going to have an off week here or there. So I think if you've got Mike Wallace, he's someone you probably still want to keep in your lineup as a probably a wide receiver 2 or even a flex option.
Yeah, especially with all the buys. Steve, what about you?
I play Wallace as a matchup guy, but I didn't realize how consistent he was. We went over this a little bit last week. But I see him as like a boomer bust kind of guy only because that's how the Dolphins kind of see him. But this is a week where you probably don't have too many options. You probably have some guys on bye. So he's certainly somebody that you can plug in and hope for some points from. I wouldn't be against it, certainly, especially this week.
Yeah, that was only his third time scoring single digits this year. He's gone 4 times in double digits. A couple times close with 8 and 9 points, and then last week was actually his lowest total of the season. So, Steve, let's talk about your highs for last week. I'll give you like a half pass on Tony Romo because he got hurt.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. I should have known better than to pick Tony Romo, but he only scored 12.5 points, and they are, I don't know who they're playing this week. They're playing Arizona this week in Dallas, so a little bit of a better defense than Washington, certainly. But I think Patrick Peterson's hurt. I don't know if he's going to play this weekend or not. Of course, I don't know if Tony Romo is going to play this weekend or not. So I guess if he plays, what do you guys think on Tony Romo?
No, keep him on
this
your
week
bench.
at Arizona?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to play, but if he does, I'd say keep him on your bench.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't trust him after seeing him get hit. I mean, he looked dead on the field for a couple minutes there, and I'm not sure. I have a feeling that he is going to try to play. As much as I hate to give any Cowboy credit, I do think Tony Romo is a tough guy that really wants to get out there and play. But if he were in, unless you were just one of those people that only have one guy on your roster and it's Tony Romo, then I guess you have to go with him. But hopefully you're playing the waivers and you've got some type of backup this week because I wouldn't feel comfortable starting him.
Yeah, I wouldn't start him either, but I probably wouldn't have started him in many weeks. But last week I thought he had a good matchup, and apparently he didn't. I also missed on Marshawn Lynch. He ended up with 6.5 points. Again, the Seahawks play the Raiders this week, and I've already mentioned that I think they could score 100 points, so that would be good for Marshawn Lynch if they do that.
We'll skip him. I got him on a list later.
Okay, well, never mind then. In that case, we'll jump right into Joe, who did just as poorly as the rest of us on High.
Yeah, I did. So I had Jerick McKinnon in there, and he really didn't have terrible games stat-wise. If you're just a fan,
skip it.
Skip what?
Well,
Steve, don't you have him on the list?
I have him on a list, but if you want to,
well, we should just talk about last week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I was just talking about what he was doing last week and saying that statistically his numbers actually weren't terrible. He averaged 5 yards a rush. He had 83 yards or 82 yards, but he just didn't find the end zone. But for fantasy purposes, absolutely that's a low grade. And Baldwin, still the targets were there, and he had 60-some yards, but no touchdown. And I was kind of hoping for touchdowns out of both of those. But when it comes to fantasy, it doesn't really matter. If you're not getting in the end zone, it doesn't help you. So I missed on those two pretty bad.
Yeah, I think Doug Baldwin can be, and we'll talk about McKinnon a little bit with Steve, but I think Baldwin can be a plug-in this week. I just think you're not going to get consistency out of him. I think, you could see him put up 15 points this week, and then next week he could have another 6-point game.
Yeah, I mean, he's had 19 targets over the last 2 games, so I think it's obviously pretty clear that he is going to be the number one receiver for the Seahawks, but I agree because they do seem to spread the ball around really well, so I think that you could have a huge week one week, and then the next week he disappears.
Anything to add for Doug Baldwin, Steve?
Yeah, I don't trust any of them at this point. It's tough to trust anybody on Seattle. It's kind of like a New Orleans situation where you just don't know where they're going to go with the ball from week to week. It's tough to... But again, another plug-and-play guy because of all the buys that are going to be happening this week to really good talent. So you certainly could have the option of putting him in, and he's got a plus matchup against the Raiders.
Yeah, by the way, teams on bye this week: Atlanta, Buffalo, Chicago, Detroit, Green Bay, Tennessee. So, I mean, a lot of good receivers between Atlanta with Julio Jones, Chicago with those two, Detroit with, Megatron, who's supposed to come back in Week 10, which is good news for Megatron owners if you're still in the playoff picture, and Green Bay with Nelson and
really all three guys.
Yeah, and even Devonta Adams now. So let's move on to this week's highs. I have Alex Smith playing against the Jets. The Jets' pass D is not good. They give up almost 3 passing touchdowns a game. I think he's a good streaming quarterback with all the buys this week. You have Matt Ryan, he's out. Stafford, Cutler, guys like that. Charles is a weapon out of the backfield, catching passes. So I just think Alex Smith. I think actually all the Chiefs, not all the Chiefs, but between Charles and Smith, I think both of them put up some good numbers this week. I mean, Charles, obviously, you can't bench even though the Jets' rush defense is pretty good, but he has that option to go through the air as well, and I just think Alex Smith and the Chiefs can attack that Jets' pass defense. Also, I have Frank Gore on my high list. They play against the Rams. Last week, speaking of the Chiefs, both Chiefs running backs against the Rams had a good game. I think this is a good week for Gore to have a good game. They're coming off a bye. He didn't have a great game against them last time, but it is a home game now. I think the Niners are going to want to control the ball, and I think they use Frank Gore to do that. I think you see him get anywhere between like 16 to 20 touches this game, and I think he adds a touchdown as well, which helps his value. So, Steve, we'll start with you. Actually, sorry, Joe, we'll start with you. So then Steve will be able to go right into his high. So, Joe, what do you think about Alex Smith and Frank Gore this week?
I really like both of those picks. I like to disagree with you as often as possible, but I think the Alex Smith pick is a really good one, especially like you said with all the streaming. If you're streaming quarterbacks and all the buys this week, I think Alex Smith could be one of the top quarterbacks this week. I obviously I haven't seen Steve's rankings yet, but I mean there's so many good quarterbacks, but I'd probably try to find him somewhere in the top 10 of quarterbacks this week just because of the matchup. And I think Frank Gore, he was on a bye last week. I'm not sure if he mentioned that, so he's had some recovery and some rest. I think you could see a pretty good day out of him against the Rams defense. It really isn't what it was last year, and some teams have had success for them. So as much as I'd like to disagree with you, Adam, I think both your picks are really spot on.
All right. Steve?
Yeah, I'm actually, you mentioned all the fellas that are on bye this week. You mentioned like Matt Ryan and Stafford and Cutler, and who you didn't mention was Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers...
I was getting low on time, okay.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers is a guy who I'm playing against this weekend on Aaron Rodgers' owner, and he didn't have a second quarterback. And he actually ended up picking up Eli Manning instead of Alex Smith, and I am happy about that.
Yeah, it's a mistake.
So Alex Smith, I think, is a good pick. I think he'll definitely be ranked as a top QB2, if not a QB1 this week, just like you said, because of all the buys, and he's got a really plus matchup, so that's a good one.
Yeah, he did hurt his shoulder last week, but he did practice today, which is Wednesday. So he looks like he's on track. And by the way, according to Yahoo projections, at least, Alex Smith just behind Eli Manning's projection by 0.3 points. But you and I both know Yahoo projections are ridiculous. So
I faced a guy who was projected for 85 points last week, and he scored 166. So go ahead and trust Yahoo projections
there
for
you
what
go.
they're worth.
Alex Smith, 32 points. You heard it here.
The Frank Gore pick, I'm a little more lukewarm on, just because momentum is really slowing down on it. I buy the bye week thing. I'm into that, and you'll see why in a second. But I don't know. I'm just not really sure on that. They really seem to like Carlos Hyde. The carries have been getting closer to 50-50. I can see Frank Gore having a good game for sure, just because of the Rams are in shambles at the moment. But I'm a little more lukewarm on that pick rather than the Alex Smith pick, which I do like. And then, as I mentioned, I'm into the bye week thing. That's because my first high is Colin Kaepernick, who is the quarterback for Frank Gore's team. Again, as Adam mentioned, they're playing the Rams. They're in chaos right now. They have injuries left and right. It's just a really unfortunate season in St. Louis, really. But that doesn't stop teams they're playing from scoring a lot of fantasy points, which I think is going to happen. I just think, again, coming off the bye, Kaepernick will be ready to go. They are at home, I believe, which I always like San Francisco when they're at home. They'll probably play their game, and their game is Kaepernick not only throwing it around, but running it a lot as well. So I think Kaepernick's due for a pretty big week here against the Rams. My second pick is Mark Ingram, who is really gaining momentum now coming off the bye. I really like the way that he's playing. They are at Carolina tomorrow night. Again, this is on Wednesday, so they're playing a Thursday night game. I try to avoid Thursday night games as much as possible, but I do buy into the running backs performing well on Thursday nights just because of the running game, and it's more of a defensive battle, which kind of caters a little bit more to running than passing. So I think Ingram is the number one back at this point in New Orleans, and I think that they're going to keep feeding him, because as they keep feeding him, he definitely is getting more success as the weeks go on. So Kaepernick and Ingram are my picks. Adam, where do you stand on them?
I agree with both of them. I'll give you two separate reasons for each, or a separate reason for each, I should say. Kaepernick, because the Rams are giving up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks in 2014 so far.
Oh, I meant to say that too.
I'm glad you didn't, because I might not have had a point. And then Mark Ingram, because I'm playing against him in a particular league, same league that Steve got 160 points put up on him last week. And it always seems like guys play really well the week I play them. And Mark Ingram had a great week last week, and I don't see him slowing down, especially if Pierre Thomas isn't going to play. And I'm not sure that he is on such a short week. I think he's projected not to play. So with that, I don't think Cadet's going to, cut into any of his carries. Cadet had one carry last week. Ingram had 24. So I think Ingram easily gets at least one touchdown this week. I don't know if he puts up 24 carries for 172 yards,
A lot of
but
stuff to do every week.
yeah, I do think he approaches the 20 carry mark though, and probably gets close to about 80 yards. But I think he grabs you that touchdown. So I would agree there. Joe?
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys both said on Ingram. I think he looks really good, and last week was if last week was any indication of what he's going to look like going forward, I think if you held on to Ingram and were patient with him, you're going to be really happy. I agree with everything about Kaepernick, but just to play devil's advocate, and just the only thing I could see maybe going a little south on him would be if they just get up so big that they take their foot off the gas pedal against the Rams, and so Kaepernick's stats just don't look as good. They win the game so easily, and maybe you see more of a Frank Gore, Carlos Hyde stat line that looks a little better. But I think if against that defense, I think Kaepernick should be good. But I think it's just something to think about if you have two quarterbacks on your roster, whether the other guy has a matchup that may lend itself to more of a shootout. But that's just playing devil's advocate because I would love to be starting Kaepernick this week.
Can I just say real quick?
Yeah.
I would love to disagree with Steve on Kaepernick like I did with Flacco because I remember our threshold is 20 points. Kaepernick's only had above 20, I believe, twice this year.
Yeah.
But I learned my lesson. I'm not going to disagree because Kaepernick will probably put up 40 points this week.
There you go.
You're welcome, America. He's for 5 touchdowns.
So we'll go into my highs this week. I went a little out of the box with the first one. I went with Jeremy Hill, the backup running back for the Bengals. Right now, if you've watched any of the games, Gio Bernard has been banged up every single week, I think, for the last 3 weeks, where he's had to leave for at least a series. So I'm just getting worried that to the point that this is going to be something that's happening more often, or even if this is going to be the week that this one, he gets hit again and he's not just out for a series, he stays out for the rest of the game or even multiple weeks. So I think they're going against Jacksonville, who hasn't been actually terrible against the run this season. But I think that they're going to probably give him a couple more carries this week, or at least more touches, because last week I think Gio only had 2 receptions, whereas Hill really was the receiving back. So I think you're going to see an increase in touches with Jeremy Hill getting more passes out of the backfield. And obviously, Gio did not practice today, which isn't uncommon for guys on a Wednesday to miss. So that's something to keep in mind, because if Gio does not practice tomorrow or Friday and Jeremy Hill ends up being the starting running back, I mean, he's an easy running back 1 or at worst a running back 2 going into this week. And the other guy I'm high on this week is T.Y. Hilton, just because he has been one of the most consistent receivers over the last 5 weeks. 4 out of the last 5 weeks, he's had over 100 yards receiving. So I'm making a declaration here tonight that until he proves me wrong and until he sucks, he's going to be on my high list regardless of matchup every single week here on out. So what do you guys think about that, Adam?
I will agree with both of them. Jeremy Hill, like you said, I mean, they're actually unsure if Gio's even going to play this week right now. So keep an eye on that status. But, obviously if Gio doesn't play, big boost to Jeremy Hill's value. But I think they do maybe try and limit Gio anyway, even if he does play. And then T.Y.
Yeah.
T.Y., a guy that I played against last week. So all you Ingram owners, I play against Ingram this week. Thus is my point in case. So I agree with both of them. Steve?
Yeah, and Steve, before I get to you, and you picking Jeremy Hill, I was trying to look for somebody because of all the buys this week who you may have on your bench because you may be the Gio owner, but in both, I have him I think in 2 or 3 leagues where I'm not the Gio owner, and I drafted him in all of those leagues, and he's just been sitting on my bench week after week, and in all of those leagues, I think I'm going with him this week because I do think, and he'll be in my flex in all of those leagues because I think this is the week. So, Steve, what do you think?
I actually have Gio on a list. But Jeremy Hill, I could certainly see all of your reasons because I have Gio on a good list, so I like the matchup at least, and so I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
T.Y. Hilton is, I mean, the numbers are what they are. I hate T.Y. Hilton, but he keeps producing, so it's never a bad pick to have him on a high list, and the Giants certainly aren't a stellar defense, so I think that. Both of the picks could definitely turn out. I wouldn't have picked either, but I can see them both panning out now that you state your case. So, good job, Joe.
Thank you.
Well, let's move on to the lows while that love fest goes on over there. I had Kelvin Benjamin, gave myself a yellow. I would have given normally a green because it is under 10, but it was all That was all yardage right there. He actually almost got his second 100-yard game of the season. And Steven Jackson, they gave a yellow because he was buoyed by a touchdown. He had 12 points. Without it, obviously, he would have just had the 6. Really odd game there, by the way, with that Atlanta and Detroit game. I played against Matt Stafford. He had like 3 points in the first half. Thought I was golden, and then he ended up with like 20-something points. But anyway, I digress. Kelvin Benjamin against the Saints Thursday night. Now, we all usually don't like Thursday night games, but I think you guys can agree that Kelvin Benjamin's a guy that you got to keep in your lineup regardless. I think he's a wide receiver 2 easily the rest of the season with some wide receiver 1 upside, and that includes this week. So do you guys have anything to add to that? Any disagreements?
No, I mean, if you know, I'm assuming I'm surprised we haven't talked about what Kelvin Benjamin did to not get into the green last week. I'm not sure if you saw what he did at the 5-yard line.
No.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah, he had a long catch and was running to the end zone and was looking up at the scoreboard and did not think the guy behind him was as close as he was and tackled him at the 5-yard line. So he was hot dog in the last 10 yards or so. So if he would have just ran through, he would have had a touchdown. So he would have had a great day.
And he probably would have had 100 yards. Was it at the 6-yard line?
Yeah, it probably would have been right at 100. So I mean, it was a real rookie mistake, and he's been so good this year. And it was really funny, but it was also a shame to see it because I mean there's no reason he shouldn't have scored a touchdown. And props to the guy who caught him for not giving up on him. So,
I don't know if you heard this,
but
Benjamin he purposely ran a slower 40 time at the combine apparently because he wanted the Panthers to draft him.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all.
What?
There's a story that came out.
That's a guy who. As a track coach, I've talked to plenty of guys who run slow and then come up with excuses at the end.
Yeah, like me.
Luckily, Adam, you were not one of them. But I've talked to plenty of people that do that. He did not run slow on purpose. He may have not had a good. I don't know that story. I'm just telling you right now. No guy goes to the drafting and does worse on purpose because he wants to get drafted by a team.
Yeah.
I'm actually angry that you brought that up.
I purposely ran slow in high school just so I could be
so I could recruit you.
Coached by Joe.
Talk about love.
Steven Jackson.
I'm angry that he said that now. He will be on my low list next week no matter what.
Steven Jackson, they have a bye, so no need to talk about him. So let's go on to Steve.
Okay. I hit on both of these. So all 4 of my guys on my high and low list both did poorly, but that's good for 2 of them. First one was Bryce Brown. He only scored 1.5 points, which is to be expected because, Buffalo running backs. So who knows what to expect. They are, again, on a bye this week.
Yeah.
And then Steve Smith, 89, only scored 3.5 points last week. I said it sucked to do it, but it was could see it coming. But they are back in action against the Steelers this week on Sunday Night Football. So Steve Smith loves under the lights. So who likes Steve Smith to have a comeback, bounce-back game this week?
Ooh, I do. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
How about you, Joe?
Joe?
Yeah, I think possibly. I think he's been so good all week. Like I kind of said earlier with earlier we were talking about wide receivers with Wallace. So they're going to have bad weeks some weeks, and good for you for knowing that it was going to be last week. But yeah, obviously, the way he's been playing this year, it's tough to sit him.
All right, Joe, you had Cutler and McCoy. Now Cutler's on a bye, but we can talk about him anyway if you'd like, and then we got McCoy.
Yeah, just briefly, I was really surprised. He actually did pretty well against the Patriots. Even though they did lose stat-wise, I mean, he had 227 yards, 3 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. That's what surprised me. I really thought he'd have a few more turnovers in that game. So, yeah, I was off on that. He had a pretty solid game if you started him. And then, it's LaShawn McCoy as my low. We gave me the green light at 9.7, but right now as a LaShawn McCoy owner, if you get 9.7 points, you're actually probably not that disappointed because of how poor he's been all year. So,
at this point, yeah.
Technically, I know that our cutoff right, that's what I mean. I know our cutoff is at 10, so technically I was right. But if I'm the LaShawn McCoy owner and I finally got 9.7 points out of him, I would consider that almost a win last week. But he is actually no, he's not on the list. Another Eagle will be on my list. No, he is on the list. He is on the list, so we'll get more into him a little later.
Did you do any prep work for this show, Joe?
Yeah, that's the list I put him on. Hey, I have all my links. Where are yours?
Well, here's a fun fact for you guys. Colt McCoy has as many rushing touchdowns as LaShawn McCoy. So there you go.
I don't find that fun at all.
All right, well, let's move on to who we have on our lists for this week. I'll start off with Jonah Gray playing against the Broncos. Learned my lesson last week after putting Brandon Oliver on a list for doing well against the Broncos. Denver is the best rush defense in the league. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Only 72 yards a game. Teams often, I think the reason is because teams often had to try and keep up through the air because of the offense, but I actually think this game might be pretty close. The line is saying it might be pretty close. I think it's like 3.5 or something like that. But if it is close, I think it's more because you're going to see a little bit of a shootout now that Brady is kind of getting back in the groove, and you saw Gronk last week. So I think it's more of a shootout, if anything, if it is close, than a ball control type of game. So I think Jonah Gray, maybe like 15 carries or so this week, and I just don't think, I think maybe he only gets probably like 50 yards out of it. And then I also have Chris Ivory against the Chiefs. Chiefs haven't given up a single rushing touchdown this year. That's kind of what Ivory needs. That's what he feeds on. That's what makes him actually pretty good. Hopefully you have another guy to fill in somewhere else. If you don't, you can run with Ivory, but I don't think you're going to expect too much from him this week. So Joe, we'll start with you. How do you feel about Jonah Gray and Chris Ivory?
Yeah, I agree with both of those. And the one thing you didn't mention with Jonah Gray is just the fact that he plays for Bill Belichick and the Patriots week to week. You never know who is going to be the guy that gets the most carries. I mean, would it shock either of you if the rookie, what was his name, James White ends up being the lead back this week? I mean, I doubt that's going to happen, but the fact is he does that from time to time. So I kind of like that pick because you just have no idea if he's even going to be the main ball carrier.
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if Stephen Ridley was the main ball carrier this week.
Yeah, right. I like the Ivory pick at the Chiefs. I didn't realize the Chiefs haven't given up a rushing TD yet. You obviously did your prep work, so that's pretty good.
Some research here.
So I like that. I like both of those picks.
Steve?
The Patriots, every single Patriot running back that ever existed is in the I Quit club. So that's a good pick, and I have no idea what's going to happen. But
especially Kevin Falk.
Yeah, exactly. You certainly can't trust any of them. So if you're going to put any of them on a low list, I wouldn't put them on a high list. I'd put them on a low list first because you have no idea what's going to happen there. So that's a pretty good pick. Ivory, I happen to have and don't have a bye week fill-in, so thanks for that. But it's not a bad pick either. Like you said, the Chiefs are good against the run. I'm not sure what the numbers are exactly. Fifth fewest fantasy points to running backs this year. That obviously is highly because the Chiefs don't give up running touchdowns. The only thing is Chris Johnson is essentially out of the mix now. The Jets have finally realized that Chris Ivory is the only running back they actually have. So he's going to get the carries, but like you said, he's kind of touchdown dependent. It's always tough to trust somebody when they're touchdown dependent. So that's not a bad pick either.
Yeah, I do think the one thing that could help Ivory, possibly, now I don't know, how they're going to work it, but they might be starting Vic this week. And there's always that chance that, it could improve, could help the other running backs depending on how they use him.
Yeah, that's possible, I guess. We'll have to see. But like you said, it's not a bad pick. It could be tough to trust him.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna roll with him anyway. For my lows, I had Odell Beckham Jr., who plays for the Giants. Obviously, they are coming off of a bye, and this week they are playing the Colts on Monday night. I just don't like the matchup. I don't think Odell Beckham. He's been impressive. As far as the weeks go since Cruz went out. But I just said the Colts are good against the pass, especially fantasy wide receivers. So Monday night game at home, I could certainly see him doing something there, but I'm just not 100% sold on him. And I think that this is the possibility to have a rookie-type game where he kind of disappears, he gets frustrated, and I'm just not all that high on him this week. My other guy is McKinnon out in Minnesota. They're playing the Redskins this week, who have actually been pretty good, believe it or not, against the run. So it's and then they don't have much else as far as the Vikings go. So the defense for Washington looked pretty good last week, believe it or not, with the scheme they had against the Cowboys. And I think, again, this week they can scheme for the run rather than scheme for the pass. And I think when they key on something, they're pretty good at stopping it. So I don't see McKinnon necessarily breaking out this week in the way that he has in weeks past. So, Adam, I can start with you with Odell Beckham and McKinnon out in Minnesota.
I'll agree on Odell just because you kind of mentioned it, but the Colts give up the least amount to wide receivers so far this year, so fantasy point wise. So I'll agree there. I just, I think he could have a good game, but I don't know that you can rely on him, at least this week. It's just not a matchup thing. He's not matchup proof yet. As far as, by the way, that game could be closer than you might think. Everybody probably thinks it's going to be a Colt blowout, but the line's telling you it could be a Giants line. Colts are only favored by 3.5 points. Giants are a home
dog at night.
So that actually in turn makes me kind of not like a lot of the guys on the Colts, except for maybe Ty and Luck, just because they're them. But anyway, back to actual fantasy talk instead of spread picking. McKinnon I'll disagree with only because I picked against him before and it bit me in the ass, so I think I'm going to try and learn my lesson here. I just think he's all they got. I don't think Minnesota really has much else to go on, so I think they're going to have to rely heavily on him. I mean, much like, I'm not going to compare him to Arian Foster, but who else? I mean, the Texans have better receivers than the Vikings, and they rely heavily on Arian Foster. So I just think McKinnon is they're going to be their go-to guy. So, Joe?
Yeah, I think I'll start with McKinnon because I actually agree a little bit with Adam on this, is that I just think that they don't really have anybody else that they're going to give him his touches. And because of that, I think it could look like a similar stat line to last week, which it would actually get you the green light because it would only be 9 points or 8 points. But if he does add maybe a short touchdown, that'll put him over the edge, which is always a chance. But I think he's got a chance to be in the 80s or 90s in rushing yards just because he's really all they have. So I don't know I think that's going to be a gutsy call, calling him a low call. And I actually don't agree with the Beckham Jr. Just because I think that with Victor Cruz out, I think Eli Manning's got a new toy. His targets have been, in the 5-6 range each of the last 3 weeks before his bye. And if he's able to get a touchdown, and I don't think he's going to repeat his 2-touchdown performance that he did at Dallas, but I think I think he's going to be a solid wide receiver 2 for me this week in my rankings. So I kind of like him this week.
This coming from the guy who doesn't do any prep work.
How about it?
Well, let's go into your lows, Joe.
All right, so I'm gonna start with Nick Foles. It breaks my heart to put another Eagle on the low list, but word is Jason Kelce, his center, who helps with the protection calls and everything like that, should be back this week, which will help that offensive line. But as we learned this week, the right guard Todd Herman has a torn bicep that he's going to try to play through, but I'm not sure how effective he's going to be doing that. But the Houston pass rush, I don't know about you guys. I'm personally afraid of J.J. Watt, and I'm not even ever going to be in his presence. The guy is just a beast. So, and if you've watched Nick Foles, he had some really good throws last week, but he is way too often now starting to throw off his back foot. He's even times when there's not pressure on him, his mechanics are not there. He already doesn't have a strong arm to begin with. And so if he's not getting his legs and his hips into the throw, it's normally not going to be a great throw. So and as an Eagles fan, I'm starting to lose a little faith in Nick Foles. I'm not jumping off the bandwagon yet, but I think this Houston, I think J.J. Watt just may be in his head all game, and I'm a little nervous about Nick Foles. Ben Tate I have on my low list this week. They lost their center, Alex Mack, for the season, and since that he has gone down, the rushing attack has kind of stalled. So Tampa Bay has actually been pretty solid against the run this year, only allowing one 100-yard rusher this season, and that was Justin Forsett. So, and also Ben Tate just tends to be a little injury prone, and I honestly just don't think he's that great of a running back. I think Crowell is the guy that eventually will end up being the starter as the season goes on, just because of injury possibly. So I got Nick Foles, Ben Tate. I guess we'll start with you, Adam. What do you think about Nick Foles and Ben Tate on the low list?
I'll agree with Foles. You said you're not jumping off the bandwagon. It really sounds like you're at the edge looking at the ground, though, ready to jump off of it.
I'm nervous. I don't think any Eagles fan is excited about what he's done this year.
Yeah, let me just tell you, he had over 400 passing yards last week, and still, you would think 400 passing yards I think he had 411.
Yeah.
He still only had about 23.5 fantasy points. Like you should have easily over 25 with that many passing yards. I just don't think you're going to get any type of consistency out of him. And, I think he's going to take a couple sacks this week, with J.J. Watt, like you said. Ben Tate, I'm going to disagree on. He has had a few bad weeks, and I agree that, perhaps their line is not as good as it was. I know at the beginning of the year, before they lost their center, they were doing pretty well run blocking, not as much the past couple of weeks, only 3 points in week 7, 9 points in week 8. But he's just a guy I'm not going to bench, and until he gets injured, I'm going to keep playing him. Because I know you mentioned Kroll, whatever. I don't even know how you pronounce his name, but I honestly think the coaches don't know who they want to back up Ben Tate right now. So I think right now it is Ben Tate's job to lose, and I think he's gonna be okay until possibly he gets hurt. Steve?
The Foles pick is a great pick. I was never that high on Foles to begin with this year. And unfortunately that's proven right for Foles owners, just because you said everything, really. He throws off his back foot for absolutely no reason, and he makes bad decisions. And last year, there was a lot of interceptions that were dropped, and this year that's not happening, and he's turning the ball over a ton. So he has the most turnovers in the league, by the way, in the NFL.
Before you get to Ben Tate, I heard some interesting stats on the offense of the Eagles this year, and a lot of it relates directly to Foles. They're the worst team in the red zone efficiency. I think they've got the least amount of touchdowns, or the conversion. It's like they've got like a 9.1%, or the percentage of getting a touchdown when they're in the red zone is like 9.1%. And I think they're dead last also in converting third downs within the red zone. So their offense is one of the top offenses in the league until they get to the red zone, and then they can't do anything in there. So if you're a Cody Parkey owner,
I was gonna say,
well.
It makes
exactly.
Cody Parkey one of the best kickers in the league now.
Absolutely.
Nailing them for 50 plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that, like you said, Foles isn't punching it in when you throw for 400 yards. Don't score 25 points on the fantasy end. That's not good. So I would agree with Foles being on the low list, and I hope you have another quarterback really to plug in there. With Ben Tate, I'm kind of in Adam's camp, but I think it's kind of show me something time for Ben Tate. This is a couple weeks in a row now that he hasn't been all that good. So I don't agree 100% on. I'm kind of lukewarm. Maybe this is a yellow this week for Ben Tate, but I definitely think that it's tilting in the wrong direction. But I think if you have Ben Tate, then you're going to trot him out and get some points, especially with people like Forte and Lacey and Joik Bell all on buys this week. You're probably still going to have Ben Tate in your lineups, I would think.
Thanks for listening to Primetime Fantasy Football. Send your questions in to primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com. primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com. And make sure to check out our weekly rankings, nextlevelradioonline.com, and go to the Primetime Fantasy Football tab. We'll post a link on Twitter and Facebook at NXT Level Radio or facebook.com/nextlevelradioonline.
Hey everybody, Ben Beck from Next Level, inviting you to join myself and Adam Gorey every Sunday for another episode of The Showcast. We bring you the best stories in pop culture, the newest stories in film and television, as well as movie reviews, what's going to be released in DVD, as well as coming to the box office for the weekend, and much, much more. All you have to do is search Next Level Radio under the iTunes Store and subscribe, or simply go to our website, www.nextlevelradioonline.com, and you can find our current shows as well as all of our past shows right there on the website. So we hope you join us every Sunday for another new episode of The Showcast.
Hi, this is Claire Coffey from NBC's Grimm, and you're listening to Next Level Radio.
He was a no one, 0-0. Now he's 100. He's a hero.
Prime time, fantasy football's 0 to hero.
0 to hero, just like that.
All right, first up, let's recap last week's 0 to Heroes. Not great for us. I had Brandon Oliver. I think that was more wishful thinking because I had him on one of my teams, or a couple of them. Only 6.3 points. We kind of talked a little bit about, or no, maybe we didn't talk about him earlier, but the Chargers play the Dolphins this week. Not a great matchup, and they are a West Coast team traveling to the East Coast. and I do believe it's a 1 o'clock game if I'm not mistaken. So, but I think either way, you're starting Oliver. They're talking Ryan Matthews probably going to be out through the Week 10 bye. Donald Brown is in my opinion, no issue there, even if he does play. So I'm still okay with putting in Oliver, especially with all the buys. Would you guys agree, or are you falling off the Oliver train?
Yeah, I think you can go with him again this weekend. I think he just had a down week, but I agree. Donald Brown isn't the guy you want, and I think they'll probably get back to him a little more this week. So I'd feel comfortable starting him.
I think you're victimized by buys this week, so you're probably going to start him if you have him. But I think it's good news for Ryan Matthews people that he's playing like this. He was on fire for the first couple of weeks, and people were talking about splitting carries even when Ryan Matthews came back. But I don't know that's the case anymore. He's just not as dynamic as he was for the first couple times he was out there. But I would definitely still play him this week.
Yeah, I think his size plays a little bit into that. I don't think. I think you've seen that though he can have really great games like he did. I don't know that he can consistently be your every down back. I think he gets a lot of comparisons to Sproles, even though he's slightly bigger than that. But I think Ryan Matthews will be your first and second down guy with Oliver as like your third down or passing situation back.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Last week I had Ben Tate on my 0 to hero list, and I also missed. We've talked a bunch about Ben Tate, so but rewind it for 5 or 10 minutes if you want to hear about Ben Tate. But he scored less than 10 points last week, so that was a miss for me. But I want to firmly believe that you still play him this week, but it's getting close to not playing him anymore. Joe, who'd you have?
I had Gio Bernard, so I got a yellow because he had 10.7, so he did just get over that 10 point, but it wasn't a great week for him. He had an early touch or a late touchdown. I think it was in the third or fourth quarter that actually saved it, because if it wasn't for that touchdown, he would have been the lowest of the week of any of our 0 to heroes. But touchdowns matter, and that's what he did. So he didn't practice today, so watch out there, as we said, the rest of the week if he is going to start. But if he's starting, especially with all of the buys, you're not sitting Gio Bernard. Even if you have one, even if one of us said he was low, and I spoke highly of Jeremy Hill this week. As high as I am on Jeremy Hill, I'm still starting Gio Bernard if I have him, and he's playing this week. So.
Yeah, we'll let Steve give his opinion on Gio in just a couple seconds. So I'll quick go with Marshawn Lynch on my 0 to hero. Playing Oakland, they give up the second most points to running backs this year. According to Steve, they're going to put up 100 points, so I got to think Marshawn Lynch has a few of those.
Better here first.
Yeah, I just think they get back on track this week with a good matchup at home.
I think Marshawn Lynch is a good buy low candidate right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think he's been bad the last few weeks, and a lot of stuff is coming out about the Seahawks and things not being all kosher over there at their team. And I actually tried to get him in a league and was unsuccessful, and I'm going to still keep trying. I think the owner just loves seeing that matchup this week, and I guess he understands it. They may put up 100 this week, as Steve said. So, but I think he's a good buy low candidate because he started off great this season, but the last few weeks has not done much. So, but I like this pick against Oakland. That's kind of why I want to get him in my lineup this week.
Steve, you want to trade him to me?
No, I do not, because I have him, and I don't have any other. I don't have any other players. Let alone
Steve, I would like to buy low on him.
Oh, okay. Well, then he's yours.
Yeah, Chris Johnson. I don't believe I've dropped yet.
I'll give you Brandon Oliver.
Okay.
For Marshawn Lynch.
Well, what if I threw in my third-round pick next year, since we're in a keeper league together? Would that make it fair?
Yeah, I think that's even.
Yeah, I'll give you Chris Johnson for Marshawn in your third. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll have to mull it over, but you guys are in the lead for those two.
All right. Well, let's get on to your Gio that we've been teasing for the past half hour.
Oh, sure. I have Gio Bernard on my 0 to hero. As Joe mentioned, he wasn't completely a 0 last week. He scored 10 points, but he was definitely buoyed by a touchdown. I just think that this week against Jacksonville, he's going to go ahead and get out there and get back to being Gio, who catches the ball, runs the ball. I think he could go over 100 all-purpose yards this week. I'm just really high on him. They're at home. I think their defense is definitely a better team at home. They're a better team as a whole at home. They're one of those teams that plays way different at home than they do on the road, to me. So I think Gio has a chance to, like I said, go over 100 all-purpose yards. And if he scores a touchdown, that is just icing on the cake. So What do you guys think about my Gio Bernard pick?
Yeah, as long as he plays, I like him. I mean,
yeah.
Joe kind of said it a little bit ago. You're not going to bench him. I could definitely see him getting over 100 all-purpose yards because he's a threat on the ground and through the air.
Yeah, I think my only fear with him, and again, I'm not telling you to bench him at all. My only fear is because obviously his coaches have known he's been a little banged up, that they may, scale back on his workload a little bit. But Bernard is the kind of guy that you saw last year didn't even have much of a workload and was still able to put up really good numbers. So I don't think he needs to get a ton of carries to be successful. So, I don't know if he'll rack up a ton of yards and touchdowns, but I think he'll be serviceable at worst. I think he's a running back 2 this week if he starts.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
All right, and my 0 to hero, I'm going to go with LaShawn McCoy. He wasn't a total dud last week. And as I mentioned when I talked about Nick Foles earlier, getting Jason Kelce back in the middle has got to help the line and the protection. And if they want to take any of the pressure off of Nick Foles that he's going to see from that line, they've got to establish a running game. And if they do not establish a running game, I don't think the Eagles can win this game. So I was half tempted to put McCoy and Darren Sproles in there. But I decided just to keep it to one guy because this will be Darren Sproles' first game back. He is going to be playing this week. But I just think that the only way the Eagles can actually be successful is with a run game, which probably won't be easy to do. But I think that's their only chance. So I don't know. Adam, what do you think?
I'm actually gonna disagree, just because I have to see it first. I mean, he had double-digit points in weeks 1 and 2, but since then he's only had 1 in week 6. Now, obviously, there's a bye there in week 7, but I just gotta see them get him the ball more and him do more with it until I can actually jump on the hero train. I think you could see him get in that 9-10 point range, but I don't know. Like a hero to me for him would have to be like a normal LaShawn McCoy game, which would be like a 14-15 point game, and I just don't know that I see that, especially with Houston's front line. And JJ Watt's just a monster. Fair. So, Steve.
I'm in on McCoy. You want to talk about buy low candidates? I think LaShawn McCoy is right at the top of that list with Marshawn Lynch and Keenan Allen, if Keenan Allen still applies. But I like McCoy a lot. I think you mentioned Kelce. He's back. I don't know what Harriman's deal is, but Mathis will come back, which is the most important part. Mathis is coming back soon as well. So if you can buy low on McCoy, I would do it right now because I think he's going to explode at the end of the season and into the fantasy playoffs and become the guy that you drafted him if you drafted him as maybe the number 1 overall pick. So I'm in on McCoy. I'm not too scared about J.J. Watt / Jadeveon Clowney. I'm much more afraid of the pass rush than the run game. So I think LaShawn McCoy can have a big impact this week.
All right, well, let's go into our don't buy the hype. Last week I had Ronnie Hillman, gave myself red. I did get correct about him not having the touchdown chances because Juwan Thompson took those away from him. Unfortunately, he still ended up with 13.8 points because of all the yards. So a guy that, against the Patriots are not great against the run, so keeping him in this week. Even without the buys, I think he's an RB1 probably this week, low-end RB1. What about Steve? We'll start with you.
At this point, I mean, Hillman, if you got Hillman, you're going to play Hillman. So I don't disagree with that at all. I think that there could be a lot of points scored in their matchup against the Patriots this weekend. So if you got Hillman when Ball went out, you struck gold. So that was a good pick by you, and I agree.
Yep, I don't think there's anything else to add. He's doing well. Keep playing him.
All right, Steve, who was on your low list last week?
I had Roddy White, who only scored 6.6 points, which is about what I expected, playing in London and all that stuff. Like you said, that was a weird game. So the Falcons did essentially 0 in the second half, and Roddy White didn't do too much in the first half either. So I hit on that one. However, Roddy White is one of those fellas on a bye this week, so there's really nothing to add about that. So, Joe, go ahead and continue on with yours.
Yeah, I had Denard Robinson. I was really surprised about that. I just did not think that any Jacksonville running back was going to have any success this year. And this is actually 2 weeks in a row where he's actually been pretty solid. He had 11.8 points last week. So yeah, I'm surprised. I did not see who he's playing this week, so I have not seen that yet.
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. So
Talk
I think
about your
that's gonna be
research.
Yeah, I didn't look at that for last week. So that's going to be a tough matchup this week. But, with all the buys that you have out there, he may be a guy that you were able to pick up. And if you're weak at running back and with all of the buys, you may have to play him. You may not have a choice in there. But I would assume that he's going to come back down to earth this week.
Yeah, I mean, he did have good yards per carry. I mean, he ran 18 times for 108 yards. And so, I mean, that all those points were all natural, no touchdown in there, 6 yards of carry. But I agree, Cincinnati's run defense much harder. But for me, his value lies, especially if you're in a Yahoo league, where you can put him in as a wide receiver. So if you're looking at a 3 wide receiver league or something like that, or you have a couple guys out on a bye, he's just valuable because you can plug him into a couple different spots. So I still like him this week, maybe as like a low end running back 2, high end wide receiver 3, I guess, the way his positions work. But I'm still playing him just because he's getting the touches.
I agree with everything you guys said, so I'm going to tell a story. I was in New York today before we started our podcast here, and I was at an H&M on 34th and 7th, and going down the escalator, I got my shoelace caught in the bottom of an escalator, and it was probably the scariest moment of my entire life. So, Denard, I don't blame you for not wearing shoelaces or tying your shoelaces or whatever the hell the reason is they don't call you shoelace. And that's my story, but I also agree with everything you guys said, and I don't think he's going to do well this week, but I think you have to play him if you have him.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree, though. That would be the most terrifying thing I would ever encounter.
It was the scariest moment of my life. Like, it wasn't even close. I thought I was going to get sucked into an escalator. It was incredible.
Rather than just take your shoe off.
Yeah, I like these shoes.
There's no time to There's no time to think.
With those shoes.
Yeah, there's no time to think in that situation. You're not even thinking about taking your shoes off.
Yeah.
Let's go on to our picks for this week's Don't Buy the Hype. I'm going with Martavis Bryant. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Only because, he's kind of come up out of nowhere the past couple of weeks. They're playing the Ravens. Ravens only have given up 7 touchdowns on the receivers, 2 receivers the entire year. He had 2 last week. I don't think that happens again. I don't know if he even gets 1. I think he is going to overall end up being better than Wheaton. But I'm not crowning him as like a fantastic wide receiver. Yeah, I think if anybody gets points on that team this week, it's Antonio Brown. I don't think they spread the wealth like they did last year. I don't know what the hell happened last week with Pittsburgh and Indianapolis, but it was absolutely ludicrous, and that's not happening this week. So, Joe, let's start with you. What do you think about Martavis Bryant this week?
Yeah, I like the way you put that. I think with all the touchdowns they threw, I think he was just he was a product of all of those touchdowns going around. I wouldn't feel confident with him going forward. I'm not sure him versus Wheaton. Obviously, he had the better week, so you're probably right. He's probably moved ahead of Wheaton, but the only guy I feel comfortable starting is Antonio Brown out of that receiving core.
I'm actually going to stand on the other side of the fence of this one. I like Martavis Bryant a lot. No, not this week, okay. But I certainly like him better than Wheaton. I can see him on the Don't Buy the Hype list because certainly he won't score 2 touchdowns again. Just because the Ravens are a better defense. Again, I talked about the Colts are being okay against the pass, but they were absolutely awful last week. But I think they'll bounce back this week. But the Ravens are just a better overall defense. Roethlisberger will not throw for 500 yards, and Martavis Bryant will not catch 2 touchdowns. So I could definitely see that happening. Speaking of catching an inordinate amount of touchdowns, Emmanuel Sanders is on my Do Not Buy the Hype list this week.
60 points last week or something like that?
I believe so, yeah. Something like that. The guy that scored 166 points against me happened to have Emmanuel Sanders on Thursday night, and that set the tone.
He'll have as many points as the Seahawks this week.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't see it this week, even though they're playing the Patriots and it could be a shootout and all things like that. I don't know. I just don't see it. I could actually see a Wes Walker revenge game. So if that happens, I want all the credit because he's done absolutely nothing this year. But they'll get back to Demaryius Thomas and Julius Thomas. Julius Thomas has been nothing for the past couple of weeks. So I think they get back to those 2 guys. And as a result, Emmanuel Sanders falls off.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that somehow, I don't know how you do this, but I think somehow the Chargers just forgot about him or something. I don't know if it's just, a matchup thing or what, but I mean, he just torched him, and I just think it was more of the matchup being something that great. Now, I don't think maybe, I don't know if, it's tough because I think he can still get to the double digits. He's not going to have, obviously, the type of week he had last year, but I agree with you. I think they get the two Thomases involved a little bit more. And I think actually Hillman gets involved a little bit more than he did last week. I just think, I just agree. I don't know what else I could add.
So I'm sorry, Adam, you agree or disagree?
I agree, yes.
Okay, so I'll disagree with Sanders. I think the targets are there. I think he's just not been able to score touchdowns all year, and then this last week he made up for it. I don't think there's any way he's going to do probably even close to what he did, but I think in this game, I think Steve said it. This could be a shootout, and I think it will be. And for that reason, I think I do think that I think he may keep this streak alive and get another touchdown, but I think he's going to probably have close to 100 yards. So I definitely would feel comfortable starting him this week.
He does have double-digit points in 5 out of 7 weeks, but
yeah, and you can look at that the other side, saying, well, then he's due for a down week.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could definitely see that, but I don't feel confident calling that.
3 of those are 10, so I could see him getting 10. I could see a yellow on this next week, but I'm not. Yeah. I'm not gonna go red and say he's gonna get 20 points again.
No, I don't think so either.
So let's go to your guy for the week, Joe.
I've got the Italian Lorenzo Taliaferro. He had
He's Italian.
Yeah, obviously. Look at that name. He scored. He had actually pretty solid fantasy numbers, but
Southern Italy.
So it's Southern Italy, Sicily area, I think, right off the coast there. Scored 2 short touchdowns, but he only had 7 carries last week. So unless he's getting those touchdowns, he's not going to be somebody you want to put into your lineup. So unless you're really desperate, if you're really desperate, you could do worse than him, I think. But I could see him, having way less points this week, 5 points or even lower. So, like I said, 2 touchdowns, but he only had 7 carries. So just the touches aren't there for me to feel comfortable having him in my lineup. What say you, Adam?
I say I agree. I don't like the the matchup's okay enough, but Justin Forset's the only running back on that team that I'm playing. I'm not playing Pierce. I'm not playing Taliaferro.
Yeah.
There's other backup running backs I'd rather play before Taliaferro.
Yes, touchdown dependent is not a good thing, and it's a perfect pick for Don't Buy the Hype. I wouldn't even play him if I had Forte and Lacey and Joik Bell and Reggie Bush. I still wouldn't play him. What do you think about that?
I like it. All right, well, let's move on to our final segment. Take your pick. Steve, why don't you kick us off with the quarterbacks?
Oh yeah, let's do it. RG3's playing this week, so
sure is.
Take that for what it's worth. They're at Minnesota, so it's him or division mate Eli Manning versus the Colts on Monday Night Football.
I will take RG3.
You're nuts.
Yeah, I don't even think it's close. I'm taking Eli Manning.
Did you do that as a joke or
no,
really
I'm taking RG3.
Oh, good thing this is recorded.
Team's desperate.
The next one's Tannehill. They're playing the Chargers this week, or Tricky Nicky at Houston.
I'm gonna go Tannehill. You saw what. I don't like to take Tannehill often, but you saw what. I know it's Peyton Manning, but I think the Chargers can give up some points, and I think Nicky's gonna struggle this week.
Well, after putting Nick Foles on my low list, I don't think there's any way I can take him, so I'll take Tannehill.
That's a sweep for Tannehill, folks. The next one I have is the only quarterback in NFL history to have 2 games with 500 yards passing, Ben Roethlisberger. It's been mentioned he plays Sunday night against Baltimore. Or the guy that he's playing against, Joe Flacco, who plays Sunday night against the Steelers, if you couldn't do the math.
I'm going to go Flacco because, like I said, Baltimore only gives up 7 touchdowns the whole year and through the air, so no way he gets 5 again.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to... This is a good one. This is close. I think I'm going to take Flacco on this one.
I was going to pick Flacco, but that would make it a sweep. I'm still taking Flacco because I think he's going to do better. And the last one, the Jets-Kansas City game, both of those quarterbacks. We got Alex Smith playing against the newly anointed Mike Vick.
I have Smith on my hot list, so I'll go Smith. But I don't think Vick is a terrible play here, depending on what type of league you're in.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think I think I could actually see Mike Vick having a big week fantasy-wise because of rushing numbers and all that stuff. So
he's going against Reed.
It's going against Reed, so I'm gonna
say it.
If I were a betting man, I may go the other way, but I'm taking Mike Vick this week. I think he's excited to start. I'm going Mike Vick.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be right and take Alex Smith.
I will say this: I do think this will be Mike Vick's first week preparing as the starter. So I think this is going to be a show me week to see what we think he can do. Now in 2 games he's going to get injured and Geno Smith will be playing again anyway. But at least for this week, against Reed, I think you could see him have a decent game.
Remember, Mike Vick has always been a pretty solid fantasy quarterback.
Right.
In 1 year he was the top scoring player in all of fantasy. So because of his rushing yards, I think I could see him being above Alex Smith.
No, yeah, I agree. I don't. He's probably going to turn the ball over once or twice.
Sure.
And maybe throw a pick and have a fumble. But he's going to.
He will have a fumble.
There's no doubt about it.
No, I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Over under 1.5 fumbles.
I'll take the under, but I'd say 1 fumble.
Okay, Steve, over under 1.5 fumbles for Vic.
Under 0.
Wow, look at that.
Still take Smith.
Yeah, by the way, Vic had 70 yards rushing last week, so that's 7 points right there. I'll take over from here with the running backs. Brandon Oliver at Miami or Justin Forsett at Pittsburgh. We'll start with Joe to take your pick.
I'll take Forsett.
Forsett, please.
I'm going to go the other way. I'll take Oliver.
Yeah, you like him.
I'm biased. Jerick McKinnon versus Washington or Alfred Morris at Minnesota. Same game here.
I'll go Alfred Morris.
Isn't it? I don't know. Isn't he on my low list or something?
No, you just don't like him.
I still hate Alfred Morris.
McKinnon is, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, McKinnon is. I'm going to take Alfred Morris because I think he's better than McKinnon.
Yeah, I'm going to take Morris too, only because I think when the game is close, they can use Morris well, and he does well. But when they get down a lot, they get away from him because they have to. I don't think they get down a lot in this game. And I think actually, if they let RG3 run, which I'm not sure that they're going to do, but that helps them even more. Trent Richardson, same game again, Giants-Colts. Trent Richardson or Andre Williams? Joe, take your pick.
Trent Richardson's actually been... Yeah, this is... I hope you're someone who doesn't have to make this decision. But I would take Trent Richardson. He's actually not looked bad at all.
I'll take Trent Richardson because, Andre Williams is a... You know what? No, I'm going to take Andre Williams. Jennings isn't playing, right?
Right.
No, he's not.
I'll take Andre Williams.
Yeah, I'm taking Andre Williams.
No, yeah.
I'm taking Andre Williams. Like we said, the line is saying this could be a close game, so you could see the Giants ground and pound this one. Jonas Gray versus Denver or Denard Robinson getting his shoelaces caught in escalators at Cincinnati. Joe.
I'll take, just because I don't trust, I'm going to go the way Steve goes. I'll be surprised if he goes against it, but I'll take Denard Robinson.
Yeah, I'll absolutely take Denard Robinson over any Patriots running back, including, what was it, Kevin Falk before?
Yeah.
Especially Kevin Falk.
All right, well, that's the trifecta then, because I'm going Denard Robinson. Joe, why don't you take the receivers?
All right, wide receivers. We got Kelvin Benjamin versus New Orleans or Brandon Cooks at Carolina. Who are you going to go with, Adam?
Benjamin. Hands down. Number 1 guy. I think he's going to have a big game. Top 10 wide receiver this week for me.
I've gotten absolutely killed on the Thursday night games when I'm playing against a guy every week, and I'm playing against Brandon Cooks this week. So Brandon Cooks will score 58 points this week.
All right, I'm gonna go Benjamin.
Damn it.
Pick number 2, we got Steve Smith Sr. at Pittsburgh or Percy Harvin at Kansas City. Adam.
Steve Smith Sr.
Steve.
89.
Bottom line.
All right, Steve Smith Sr. for me. All right, DeAndre Hopkins versus Philly or Odell Beckham Jr. versus Indianapolis.
I'm going to take DeAndre. I know Johnson is probably going to play, Andre, that being. But I'm still going to take DeAndre. You can throw on the Eagles. You saw Larry Fitzgerald and Brown have a good game. I think Floyd was the only guy who didn't have a good game, and he got me a big fat 0 points. Thanks a lot for that. But no, I like DeAndre.
Yeah, I have Odell Beckham on a low list, but even if I didn't, I'd take DeAndre Hopkins because his matchup is better. So Hopkins.
As good as Kerry Williams has been there this year, hashtag sarcasm, I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins.
He hashtagged on the podcast.
I sure did. All right, Jeremy Macklin at Houston. Yeah, Hacklin. That was his high school nickname. Jeremy Macklin at Houston or Emmanuel Sanders at New England?
Give me the hacker. I'm going Macklin.
Absolutely. You guys keep giving me people that I have on my low list. Easy. I got Macklin.
Yeah, I think this one's probably been the closest one for me, but I'm still taking Macklin. He's been a wide receiver 1 all year long. His targets are really high, so I'm taking him. So
yeah, unless the Eagles decide to actually trade for Vincent Jackson, like there was talk about, Macklin's the number 1 guy over there.
Considering the trade deadline has already passed.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's over now.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
All right, and Michael Floyd at Dallas or Brandon LaFell versus Denver?
This is a tough one for me, but I'm going to go Floyd. I'm going to stick with him, even though he had 0 points last week and ended up losing me the week. You know, if you get me 5 points, I would have won, you son of a gun. But anyway, I'm going to stick with Floyd.
I actually wavered LaFell this week, and I'm kind of excited that I got him. I didn't know that I was going to get him, but I did. And I'm thinking about playing him just because of the shootout potential, and he's been really good the last couple weeks, going over 100 yards and things like that. So I'm going to go LaFell just because I think I can ride the train.
Well, Steve, you are correct. It is Brandon LaFell.
That's the answer.
Yes, that is the answer. So.
Real quick before we get going, I want to ask you guys what your opinion is on Charles Sims, because we didn't get a chance to talk about him. For me, I think they definitely give him opportunity to take over because number one, Doug Martin might not play. They know what Rainey can do, so I think if he hasn't already been picked up in your league and you have a roster spot, definitely pick him up. What do you guys? What are your thoughts on Sims for the Bucs?
Well, it's funny you say that. I've referenced this a few times in the podcast. In one of my leagues, the waivers run tonight, and I've got a waiver in for him, and I've gone back and forth on the amount. It's a unlimited budget where we so I have no idea what to spend on this guy because I don't know. I have some guys in this league, like any league, that are really into fantasy who pay attention to all of the waivers, and a couple of guys who probably aren't even aware that he was on IR. So I'm kind of going back and forth with how much I should waiver because I really want him on my roster, but I don't want to overpay because it is actually real coin. So I want him. I want that
real money?
It is real money. So we've had guys go for $50 in a single week.
Oh God.
Some weeks it pays off. Other weeks it's a ridiculous amount of money someone's spending. So last year I was able to get to the championship partly because I picked up Zach Stacy. And he was really great down the stretch. And I'm not saying Sims is going to be that guy, but I'm kind of weak at running back, and if someone's going to hit, I'd like to be the guy who finds them. And I'm thinking Charles Sims could be the guy that possibly could do it. So I want him on my roster. He's a lottery ticket to me.
Yeah, I think their line stinks. So I guess I'm going to fall a little bit devil's advocate here. I just don't know that anybody can run with that offensive line. But I think he's the guy. I don't know that Rainey hasn't really done much with it, so I think he gets the opportunity, like you guys have been saying. So if you want somebody and need somebody, and like you said, lottery ticket. I like that word. He's kind of that lottery ticket. If he hits, he's going to hit, and you're going to be excited about it. So
sure,
I wouldn't be averse to going and picking him up for sure, especially if you're in a league that doesn't have waivers on Wednesday. If he's still available as a free agent pickup, go get him for sure. But I'm just not. I'm not overexcited. I'm not sure that I would be going and spending $50 of my real money on him.
No, right now, I know that this will not be out, and I'm not sure if anyone in that league even listens to the podcast. But right now, I got $7 on him.
That's
and
yeah.
But I'm not sure if that's going to win it because we've had weeks where I think Joe Flacco got picked up in our league for $25 one week.
Oh God!
And he would have easily been able to be picked up for $5.
Right.
So it's just you never know in our league. We have some guys who aren't the smartest with their money. So
yeah, and he's not. I mean, Sims isn't even guaranteed to play this week, but he's been practicing since last week. I actually went ahead last night and watched a little highlight of him from West Virginia playing the college game. By the way, he went to West Virginia. He's a little bit of an upright runner. He's pretty tall. He's 6 foot, 214. So he's kind of he's almost like a hybrid look-wise, like wide receiver / running back look. He kind of runs upright, but he definitely has that breakout speed. And obviously injuries, an issue there. He had already hurt his ankle. So I just think if he can stay healthy, I think he's a runner he's a type of runner you don't see every day. And that could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. Maybe you don't see a lot of them for a reason. But, I just think he has that kind of, he can get to the outside and get that speed and hit the hole. It looked like he had pretty good vision. So, he is going to get the opportunities once he plays. If he plays this week, I used a number 2 waiver on him. If he plays this week, I might have to flex him because my only other option is Niall Davis.
That's not a bad idea.
Niles.
No, there's no S, bro.
Niles Davis.
What would you guys think about that, by the way? Literally my only other option, Niall Davis, other than going and picking up a free agent wide receiver. This is a flex spot.
I'd probably personally go Niall Davis.
Who are they playing again? Kansas City?
The Jets.
Oh. I think I'd still do Niall Davis as well. It's just too risky. If you're going for a home run, then I would go with Sims. Because, you know what I mean? Like, if you're projected to lose by, like, 15 or so, then I would go, the home run pick is probably Sims, but I think Davis is going to get you more points if you're in a tight matchup.
Okay. Fair enough. So I guess that wraps it up for this week. Do either of you have any other players or anything you real quick wanted to add before we get going?
No, good luck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
We talked about Bryant and LaFell, which were 2 of the wide receivers that I kind of would suggest going and getting. So other than that, I think I'm good.
Cool. All right. Well, again, make sure you check us out, nextlevelradioonline.com, facebook.com/nextlevelradioonline. Follow us on Twitter at NXT Level Radio. You can always tweet us your questions, email them to primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com. Follow Steve at srichards31. Check out his blog, stevenrichards.net. Follow Joe at joeyweb32 and myself at AdamNextLevel. Subscribe on iTunes. Look for either Primetime Fantasy Football or Next Level Radio. Both are good subscribes. That wraps it up for this week. Thank you to Joe and Steve for joining me.
You're welcome.
And we will good luck in week 9 like we said, and we will see you for week number 10.